Right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna. I pray that I can be heard. Let me know if you can hear me. That would be great. We're gonna start quickly. Hopefully it's quickly. Having a quick little discussion on something that we were kind of touching on. Let me know if you hear any feedback because it's outside. It's a nice day today, so we're trying to hang in there. You done know? So those who just joined us, welcome back to the discussion. My name is Imuna. Welcome to the channel. Hopefully over here, we try to take a common sense approach to a lot of the things that we're experiencing in today's space and time. So we've been covering a lot of the Kevin Samuels conversation from a different perspective. I like to call it a solonomous perspective. Yeah. And so, hey, what's going on, Judah? So I wanted to show a few videos, and if you catch it on the replay, I know it's a weird time. I'm going live at 2 o'clock, but it is what it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull my screen up here. The videos are short. I saw a few on TikTok, and then I wanted to cover another video as it related to Kevin Samuel's friend because I think there's a bit of cognitive dissonance happening. But before we do, the question was, is it the man's fault? A lot of this information or disinformation that is out is the woman is at fault, she's wrong, and da 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 da. And I'm asking myself the question, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? You know what I mean? So let me click here and see what the man is saying or a man is saying about why men are not getting married.
Yo, y'all want to know why most men don't want to get married? Every man got that friend or friends that tied the knot and jumped the broom or whatever y'all want to call it. But they're always calling us to complain about y'all. It seems like you became a completely different person from who you was before you got married. They tell us you don't listen to them, you don't fuck them, you put them down, you tell them you better act right or I'm a.
My bad. Just please excuse the language on this one.
Yo, y'all want to know why most men don't want to get married? Every man got that friend or friends that tied the knot and jumped the broom or whatever y'all want to call it. But they're always calling us complain about y'all. It seems like you became a completely different person from who you was before you got married. They tell us you don't listen to them, you don't fuck them, you put them down, you tell them you better act right or I'm gonna leave you, I'm gonna take half your shit. It seems like when a man gives you the ring or his last name, you just become a straight bully. You just beat this man emotionally into submission. And I'm sure y'all gonna say this not every married woman. I'm sure there's 1% of women that's probably sweet and nice as hell, just like the movies, right? But from what I'm seeing, it don't seem like that. And that's the reason why most men don't want to get married, because we just don't want to be treated like shit. So unless we could change this norm.
Let me see, because I kind of want to play it again, but I want to pause it without it starting all the way over. Because the question is it the man's fault or is it the woman's fault? In this conversation, the man is saying, based on his research, which some would say is anecdotal, it's the women's fault. It's funny how when other people are talking, they say, "Oh, we don't want to hear your anecdotal experiences. We want to look at the statistics. We want to look at the figures." And I always ask the question, who are these stats based on? Aren't they based on people's anecdotal experience? I'm sorry, let me calm down. It's too early. So he's giving us an anecdotal. He polled his friends, and this is what they came back with, right? So let me play it again because the question is it the woman's fault? We remember early on in the biblical narrative, it is said it's the woman's fault. It's the woman you gave me. So right off the bat, the conversation is blame the woman. It's nothing new. Blame her because it's her fault. Right? She came and gave me what she wasn't supposed to give me. So this is nothing new. But I want to go over it again. So let's.
Yo, y'all want to know why most men don't want to get married? Every man got that friend or friends that tied the knot and jumped the broom or whatever y'all want to call it. But they're always calling us to complain about y'all.
Pause. I hope I don't have to keep starting all over at the beginning. It may be he says every man has this friend, which is a great assumption. It's a gross generalization that the majority of men, which would have to in this case be a single man or single man, has that married friend. And in this case, or these cases, that single man that he's assuming for all of the brothers or men in general, right? This is how we break conversations down. Has a friend who is just not happy, and that this friend is complaining to his unwed friends about why he's unhappy, right? So if I got that right so far, let me know, because we're making a lot of assumptions before we get to whether or not the statements that he's making is true or not. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem that I can pause while he's talking. Merciful Father, let me see.
Yo, y'all want to know why most men don't want to get married? Every man got that friend or friends that tied the knot and jumped the broom or whatever y'all want to call it. But they're always calling us to complain about y'all. It seems like you became a completely different person from who you was before you got married. They tell us you don't listen to them, you don't fuck them, you put them down, you tell them you better act right or I'm gonna leave you, I'm gonna take half your shit.
Okay, pause. So, because I don't have my writing down tool right now. My apologies. Greetings and welcome to those who just came in. We're having a quick little discussion. So he's essentially charging. Not only are we to assume that all of these single men have that one married friend that's unhappily married, right? We're also to assume that they're unhappy for all of the same reasons, and the reason is that the woman has changed, right? She came into the conversation or relationship one way, and once she got the man, she became someone else. And because she became someone else, he kind of has this level of buyer's remorse. He agreed to wed her, and now she's a whole different person, right? She gives attitude. She is not engaging with him sexually in the way that is pleasing to him, and therefore he's no longer content and happy. No other things are considered in this conversation. It's how you're going to cater to the male, right? And that's going to determine whether or not the marriage is good. And if you don't do those things, then the marriage is not good. I'm going to let this one play all the way through when I play it again, because where is my noteworthy book? It's in here somewhere. I have to take notes, but let me just play.
Yo, y'all want to know why most men don't want to get married? Every man got that friend or friends that tied the knot and jumped the broom or whatever y'all want to call it. But they're always calling us to complain about y'all. It seems like you became a completely different person from who you was before you got married. They tell us you don't listen to them, you don't fuck them, you put them down, you tell them you better act right or I'm gonna leave you, I'm gonna take half your shit. It seems like when a man gives you the ring or his last name, you just become a straight bully. You just beat this man emotionally into submission. And I'm sure y'all gonna say this not every married woman. I'm sure there's 1% of women that's probably sweet and nice as hell, just like the movies, right? But from what I'm seeing, it don't seem like that. And that's the reason why most men don't want to get married, because we just don't want to be treated like shit. So unless we could change this norm.
Okay, so I let it go all the way through. So now he's basically attributing to the abuse of women. Basically, men don't want to get married because they have that one married friend that is not happily married, and he is saying that he's being emotionally abused and manipulated by this woman who has totally did a 180 from the time they were courting, if that even existed, until the time they wed. So the brothers out there, if is this true? Drop it in the comment section below if this is true. This is really, for me, gross exaggerations of what's happening, because then we would have to say, was that the same for men aforetime? Like, are we going to use the 1960s as the marker, the 1940s, when it was more patriarchal? I mean, what point in time are we going to use to say that this is when men started not wanting to get married? What point in time are we going to use? And if it's only this small 1% of women who are not abusive, where do we have space for all of the marriages that the men are abusive? I'm not pointing the finger, I'm saying who's at fault, because this is a wholesale sliding of the blame over to the next side. The men, it's not like he said, I don't want to take responsibility. The burden is too heavy. There's too much expected of the man. It's all because the woman changed. But I'm trying to figure out, has she always been like this? If we go to the 1900s, was she like this? The 1800s? If we go to another country, is she like this? Or is this something that quote unquote modern women have become? These are all the questions I would ask the brother. Um, and Judah says, so men don't want to get married because other men complain. So women are blamed for what men say. Yep, got it. Yeah, exactly. That's why I said this is interesting. Um I have another little video because TikTok. There was another one that I wanted to play, but I couldn't find it again. But it'll be all right. So let's listen to what now this woman is saying. So this is what the men are saying. Well, this man, let me say, because there are plenty of men out there who say they do want to get married, right? So then they're not listening to their friends who are not having the best marriage experiences. So again, I think that people, not just men, but people use statistics and anecdotal stories when it suits their purpose. And when it no longer suits their purpose, they disqualify you from using it. That was KS's strategy a lot. He will give you these skewed statistics without context. And then if you give an anecdotal story, you're dismissed because your story is anecdotal. But I asked the question, you know how statistics are run? Some organization, governmental or otherwise, put out surveys. They put out calls for people who have had a certain experience. It's all going to be anecdotal. Somebody's going to say, this is what I experienced. This is the reason I got married. This is the reason. So to say that people who make up the statistics don't matter individually, but collectively they do, I think that's weird. Let me know if that's just me or if I'm tripping. Now let's listen to what this woman is saying because we're trying to figure out, is it the man's fault? You know?
If you are a single woman over 35 and you have established a home, car, career, that guy you meet must have established a home, car, career, because then you guys are compatible. But if that guy have nothing, that means he needs to go find a woman with nothing, and then they are compatible. But if he has nothing, trying to date a woman with something, but has absolutely nothing to bring to the table, that's just not being smart, ladies. And yes, I know that you will say to me, well, what about building together? Absolutely. We build in our 20s, not after 35. After 35, we're looking for like-minded men who are progressing in life. And no, it has nothing to do with being a gold digger or wanting your money, but it has everything to do with standards. Therefore, ladies, choose wisely, be smart, date smart, because oftentimes an unaccomplished man is not looking for love, he's looking for help. Remember, I told you.
Hello. Give me 1 second. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that right there is very interesting. Um, as she is, I think she forgot the other side of that. Basically, she was speaking to the women, and she was saying that a 35-year-old woman who has certain things already in place should also get with a man who has certain things in place. And if he doesn't, then he should get with someone else who doesn't. I find that interesting because where does hypergamy come in this? Because she forgot to get the other variable, which is the man has certain things in place, but the woman does not. So is she saying conversely that the man who has certain things in place should not get with the woman who does not have anything in place? Interesting. Let me know your thoughts on that. So oftentimes a lot of these people are kind of coming from their perspective and speaking from their angle, but mm, I think there's a lot of blame shifting or manipulating of the information and data so that one or the other does not have to deal with the blame. Now, as it relates to women and not following the instruction of men, and I'll put the link in the box, by the way. Let me know your thoughts on this. Uh, the question is it the man's fault? I did say in the beginning of Genesis, the man, according to the narrative, said it's the woman you gave me, right? So I see these men out here telling the women, shut up and you should listen to what I'm saying. The question is, do you think that's going to get her to do what it is you want her to do? I know a lot of people are out. Some people will say, oh, it's just telling the truth. They're just telling the truth. No, it's abusive, honey. The way in which a lot of the conversation is handled around men and women and what you should do to get them in place, it's abuse. It's abuse. It's verbal abuse, emotional abuse. The man just said the reason why men are not wanting to get married is because they fear emotional and psychological abuse from the women. So why isn't it the same thing on the other foot? If one person doesn't want to be abused, why do we think the other wants to be abused? Why do we think the other wants to be spoken to in a demeaning, derogatory way so that you can put them in their place? This whole do unto others is a real simple instruction, but I think we miss it. And I say that because I'm going to come to this right here. I was watching, is it the man's fault? Is the question. I was watching this. I'm not going to play the whole thing because last time YouTube was tripping. But this is Kevin Samuels' friend. So it's interesting to look at how the friends saw their friend and how the observers saw him and how the detractors saw him. So this is supposed to be a friend now. And I want us to listen closely. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I do want to catch something. Hold on. Okay. So hopefully, fair use, people. I don't know, man. I want to, because when I heard it, I was like, did I just hear what I thought I heard? Maybe I'm tripping, though. So this is his friend. Again, this is still on the topic, whose fault is it? Because he made a whole platform trying to hold men accountable. When he realized, listen, this is very important because the question is it the man's fault? When he realized that most men that he was dealing with refused to be held accountable, he decided it was easier to pick on the quote unquote weaker vessel, which is the woman. And when he began doing so, many men, not all, were in full support. It's like, oh, you can't run up on the bully in school, so I'll pick on the, for lack of a better word, wimpy kid in the corner because I know that I can walk. You know what I mean? That's the type of bullying that went on and commodification of the issues that exist in the community. And how do we overlook that and whitewash it to be, you know, that the brother was on a crusade? So let's listen to what was being said here.
Controversial YouTube
Wait.
star Kevin Samuels has died from an apparent heart attack, according to a friend we talked to tonight. We broke the news to you here on The Factor last night. Samuels is best known for dishing out some very controversial relationship advice, but coming down extremely hard, some say, on black women specifically. Take a listen.
Your running back size.
Okay.
You can hit the A gap like a.
Yeah. All right. I accept.
Wait a minute. I'm going to have to stop along the way. So this is a difference between truth, speaking truth bluntly, speaking truth to destroy the other person, speaking truth to uplift the other person. I'm a person all my life who is not afraid to say what needs to be said, but there's definitely a way. So he wanted to certain, there was a level of destructive and divisiveness in the way he delivered his message. So the question is, whose fault is it? Whose fault? Is it the man's fault or is it the woman's fault, or are they both at fault collectively? I'm gonna have to keep stopping, but it's not a long video.
So don't come in here talk about what men should not be able to do when they got to accept somebody who can run out the power I. How tall are you?
Wait, we're not gonna go through
Now
him.
tonight, a Houston attorney and
Sorry, so this is an attorney, y'all. Let's listen to the double speak. One of the things I did in a video last year when I first got wind of this, Kevin Samuels, sorry, is to analyze the double speak. I think I actually did a video talking about double speak. Why you will see that he has contrasting views depending on who's in the room is because he was kind of chameleon in a little bit. One minute he says this, the other minute he says that. Let's listen.
I got to know Kevin because I have a podcast, Dennis Sperling on YouTube, and having become very, effective at what I do, he popped up on a mutual friend's podcast and we began to talk. He then invited me to his Facebook room where it's called The Mix, and it's where you get couples together and and that's actually how I met my fiance, ironically, was getting couples together. Sounds overweight. You're not going to marry a millionaire we teach the men that they should undervalue themselves, and we teach the women that are a working guy who you can build a life with, because as it is right now, here in America, we teach the men that they should undervalue themselves, and we teach the women that they should overvalue themselves. And that was
Okay, so these are some assertions being made. Who is the we? Right? Well, we say, who's that for? Who is the we that teaches the women to overvalue themselves and the men to undervalue themselves? Who is this we? Where is this information coming from? Who is teaching this information? These are some questions that I would ask, because sometimes we just say stuff and then, then we can take a look at, where is this stuff coming from? Was there a point in time where the man was overvalued and the woman was undervalued? Again, like I said yesterday, is this an illustration of the pendulum swinging? What happened when the women were undervalued and the men were overvalued? What happened when she was a dime a dozen, when she was easily replaceable, when she couldn't own land and she couldn't speak for herself, and she were things in order at that time? He says, in America, who's we? Who's we? Who's the we? You know what I mean? But I'll continue for the sake of time.
this basic message.
For some, he was brutally honest. For others, he was brutally cruel. Where would you stand in describing your friend? I'm
sorry, did you see the slight smirk on his friend's face? This is either people are playing games and not being honest, or a level of cognitive dissonance, because two things can be true at the same time, right? The person could have done this and done that. It doesn't have to be either or. And when he said brutally honest or brutally cruel, the lawyer did a little slight smirk. Let's go back to the little smirk.
Your friend, and I'd say that because you actually had cruel. Where would you stand in?
You saw that? Did you see that? Has anybody ever? Hey, what's going on, Nasha? You guys ever watched the body language guy on YouTube? So we just saw a slight smirk that kind of gave away on that brutally cruel conversation. But let's continue.
Describing your friend, and I'd say that because you actually had a relationship with him. You knew him, and it led to your fiance. So how would you describe what your friend did?
Well, for those people who think he was cruel, people who've been lied to their whole lives, they see the truth as cruelty. Kevin Samuels. So
he's speaking to the cruel. I want y'all to listen, because this conversation is going to come back again, Mr. Lawyer Man. For those people who think he was cruel. So if somebody's making a charge or allegation, say you're such and such, you have to define that, right? You have to define what do we mean. Otherwise, we're going to be playing games with definitions, right? So let's look up cruel real quick before we continue, because the lawyer's like, for those people who think, that means it's your imagination. This is how people gaslight you in relationships. They can be doing something to you. You use a word, they redefine the word, and therefore, when you're pointing out certain behaviors, they're like, I'm cruel. I'm not cruel. I do this to you? Do I do that to you? So let me look up cruel. Just for the sake of, you know what I mean? So we're going to go to Mr. Merriam-Webster here. Disposed to inflict pain or suffering, devoid of human feelings. Meaning, did the person always say, I don't give a French toast about your feelings? Right? I don't care about how you feel. You whatever the person was saying, right? Devoid of feelings, causing or conducive to injury, grief, or pain, unrelieved by leniency. This is the definition of cruel. Okay? Sadistic, like you derive some type of pleasure from inflicting pain on somebody, right? If somebody's telling you something truthfully is one thing. If they're saying it to harm you, to hurt you, to cause some type of emotional distress, then that's a level of cruelty. What's that sound? Yeah. So let's go back to where he's trying to tiptoe around whether or not you can perceive what he was doing as being cruel.
Samuels was accurate. He backed his statements up with facts from the CDC reports. In the Black community alone, 80% of.
So his statements, you look like a linebacker. His statements of an opinion is backed up by information from the CDC. I'm gonna try. Listen, let's continue. Is the man at fault?
The women have children out of wedlock, and that's being sired by 20% of the men. 51% of black men don't have children.
Women having children out of wedlock cannot be something discussed without holding both men and women accountable. If the woman determines, according to their doctrine, whether or not the man is going to lay with her, but he determines relationship status, that means he's withholding relationship status while approaching the woman to defile her. But if you only hold one accountable, then it looks like the Roman gladiator session. Throw them in the ring and watch, this is what was going on. Because when you look to hold men accountable, they're like, nah, bruh, let's talk about the woman. Right? So this is why some of the reasons why when they were going into statistics, I'm like, I'm done. Because for really looking at statistics, you can't just use them to make them say what you want. That's off.
Children. 31% of black men are married and live with their wives. So that means there's about 18% of men, give or take, who's siring children with these women. And so he pointed that out. He said that's why black men aren't getting married.
It's not, we went over a show like that. It's not that most of these so-called black men don't have children. You need statistics. How many of you impregnated women? How many of you caused women to get abortions? Just because you don't presently have a children, no, doesn't mean you never impregnated somebody. Doesn't mean you never defiled somebody. It doesn't mean that you're not responsible for the 80%. It doesn't mean you never broke somebody's heart or caused them to have some type of emotional distress in where they don't trust relationships anymore. You can't have all of these 80% of women not marrying without having some type of relationship or experience to explain why you have such a high number of women not marrying. If you can understand what I'm saying. Again, I put the link in the box. If you're like, Amuna, I call bull, I don't believe it. You know what I mean? Click the link. But let's go.
The thing about Kevin Samuels that you all don't know is that his vision, his legacy was going to expand past YouTube. He was doing that because he was getting paid for it. He was a brilliant people and was accurate about it. All that did was endear him to the rest of them. So for those people who are his detractors, listen to the man's podcast and you'll see he was speaking the truth. It's the reality that we live in now.
Now, one of the things you said was he was talking about getting yourself together, staying in shape. And that's one of the things he did. And that's why this is so shocking to many people.
Unfortunately, most of you all didn't know him until about 2.5 years ago. But for the first 5 years, he spoke to men. He said, you need to get yourself together.
So for the first 5 years, we didn't know him. Why? Because it didn't blow up. Because it wasn't something that everybody wanted to see, you jumping and attacking men, right? But when you shift your focus to attacking women, then it is what it is. But let's listen, because I kind of skipped through some of the parts for the purposes of this video, but let's listen.
You're 5'5", 280 pounds, and you only make $30,000 a year, yet you want this supermodel to be your woman. That's not going to happen. And he was cruel. You want to see cruelty? Look at how he talked to some of those guys.
Wait a minute. I thought he just said he wasn't cruel. I thought he just said he was speaking the truth. So when he was asking the lawyer man the question as to whether or not he was cruel, he's like, no, he wasn't cruel. He was speaking the truth. But now when he wants to show that he was an equal opportunity abuser, verbally and emotionally, he shifts his focus to when he was abusing or being cruel to men. Which one is it? Was he cruel or was he not cruel? Was he brutally honest? What did the guy ask? Was he brutally honest or he just asked something else, right? So it's the same terminology, but now all of a sudden he was cruel, but he wasn't cruel to women. He was cruel to men. Huh? Which one is it? Let's listen again.
My God, he would have you leaving that podcast, like 2 feet shorter than when you walked in. But
equally honest to both sexes.
Equally honest, but it really picked up because no one has been brave enough to speak to women in an honest way.
But pause, okay, Mr. Lawyer Man, this is double speak. Earlier on, he said, let me go back because I don't even want to misquote what the man said. Let me go back. Where we at? 546.
I got to know Kevin because Kevin become very to talk and it's where you get, and that's actually how I met my fiance, ironically. contact over the past, getting people married again has caused you, and you're a 150 guy who you can, we teach the men, women that they should owe you over.
Some he was brutally honest, for others he was brutally cruel. Where would you stand in describing your friend? And I'd say that because you actually had a relationship.
For some, he was brutally honest. For others, he was brutally cruel. So the interviewer is who brought in this conversation of cruel. Let's listen to what he says and then match it to what he says later on. Okay.
With him, you knew him, and it led to your fiance. So how would you describe what your friend did?
Well, for those people who think he was cruel, people who've been lied to their whole lives, they see the truth as cruelty. Kevin Samuels was accurate. He backed his statements up with facts from the CDC reports.
So basically, he explained it away by saying, if you've been lied to your whole life, then you would see the truth as cruel. And then later on, he says, pertaining to men, oh, you want to see cruelty? He would. So which one was it? So was he cruel, sir? Was he cruel? Was he unnecessary with his delivery? Okay, so anyway, rewind. I had enough of this part right here. My point being, when you're dealing with unjust weights and measures, right? Let me know if I can still be heard. When you're dealing with a system that, and even when you go to the court systems, and a lot of people complain about how there's one set of rules for this person and another set of rules for this person, that what it does is creates a lack of trust. Okay, so if you're talking to the male who is supposed to be the head, who's supposed to be just, and they can turn away when something is going to implicate them, they can bend the rules, they can hold you to this high standard, but yet still make allowances for themselves, it creates an issue in the system. Okay, it creates wrinkles in the fabric of society, because rules for thee and not for me. Unjust weights and balances. That's what a lot of, in my estimation, the problem is. When you look at society in antiquity, when you look at cultures all around the world, and you look at what's going on today, you cannot hold yourself to a different standard. The person you putting, it's like the parent putting more stress on the child than they do on themselves. The child must do, and it's a child too. And not saying of women are children, women are not children, but it's the same standard. I'm in charge, so I'm going to make all of these illustrious rules by which I desire you to obey, right? And then they're making concessions for themselves in the corner. Well, the person is a man, where you got to understand nature. When you're looking at the other person, the other party, nature, the personal way that the person moves, all of these things are not considered. It's your wicked, I'm going to castigate you, I'm going to call you names, I'm going to shame you, I'm going to do all of these things to manipulate you into doing what I want you to do. But when it's for me, don't hold me to any standard. Who told you? We see this a lot in leadership. We see this, we even saw this for over the last 2 years, rules for thee and not for me. And it always causes an issue, because people are going to look at what you do more than what you say. And if what you're doing is not matching with what you say, you see all of these videos when people go to work and their boss is not competent, and they require so much of their employees than they do for themselves. What happens? They're like, man, forget you. I'm not doing all of that. Let me know your thoughts. So whose fault is it really? The man's fault? Is the woman to blame? It's easier to blame her because, she's there, and why not? She's going to argue. She's going to try to defend herself. And then you're going to point and say, aha, see, I told you this. And I'm not saying that there are not some women who are off, and some women who are contributing to a lot of the issues. And the same could be said for the men. But where did it begin? Who dropped the ball? Who is responsible for, if you produce children, to be there to help guide your children? How many men, I've said this before, impregnate these women, beguile them, oftentimes spit game to them, make it a game of how, speaking of make it a game, let me sorry, 1 second, let me drink some of this. Are the women following the leader? I'm drinking some tamarind juice, y'all. Are the women following the leader? If the man is the leader and the woman has gone astray, was she following the man? You ever heard that song, Follow the Leader? Was she following the man? Is that how she got to where she is? Is it right to say that, a lot of this is coming from what he has allowed and what he has created? The questions we must ask ourselves. Let me know if you like, again, some of the way the women are presenting themselves. Oh, wait, hold on. Here's another, since I wasn't looking for this, but let's look at what's going on with Nature Boy. Here goes I know it seems like I'm jumping, but it speaks to the issue. Here goes a man who stands up and says, I have spiritual enlightenment, right? And I can show you the way. I don't know if anybody is aware of what's going on in this case. I have spiritual enlightenment, and then you should subscribe to me because I know what I'm talking about. And he gets a lot of these young girls in their 20s who are looking for a place to belong, and they listen to him. Hold on. And they went around the world, and they went to all of these places. And then what did he do? He used that ability to exploit them. He used that trust that they had in him for whatever reason to do all manner of things. Since I just what do you call it? Since I just came across it, let's just bring this part into the conversation to say, who's at fault? Who is leading the people astray? Who is dropping the ball? I'm watching this with you guys because I never seen this one before. So hold on.
Details in the case of an alleged cult leader. We have stayed on top of the story for you from the start. Now, a DeKalb County judge has denied bond for Eligio Bishop as he faces several charges, including rape. Just a few hours ago, our Paula Suro spoke with his legal wife and a former member of this alleged cult. Brand new video showing Eligio Bishop's first court appearance. The 40-year-old alleged cult leader of the so-called Carbon Nation group, who goes by the name Nature Boy, was denied bond Friday.
We find the defendant to be a danger to the community, a risk to intimidating the victim. There's also a risk of flight, and also the risk of committing an additional felony.
I don't know how many people have followed this case or this person for years. The judge, who's also a melanated man, is saying this person is seen to be a danger to the community. Some of the things, they streamed a lot of it for monetary gain as well, exploiting these women, telling one to slap the other, to fight them, to do all manner of madness, right? In the name of enlightenment. Who is at fault? Is it the woman? She's stupid. She shouldn't have went over there. Didn't nobody tell her to do that? You can't ask to be a leader and then at the same time say somebody's dumb for trusting you. You can't have it both ways. But unfortunately, that's where we are in this conversation. But let's listen.
Therefore, bond will be denied.
Those words a step forward in the right direction for Velvet Marquez.
This bond hearing is definitely celebrated by the survivors of the Carbon Nation cult.
Marquez, who says Bishop forced her to marry him when she was still a part of the cult and who has a child with him, believes keeping him behind bars will also keep former and current members safe.
We all have a very serious healing journey that's ahead of us, and we do not need Bishop taunting us, harassing us, and threatening us while we are healing.
In court Friday, the prosecutor read a letter from the victim who came forward.
I watched him whip a girl with a leather belt multiple times.
Whip a girl with a leather belt?
For 15 minutes straight, ordering her to kiss our feet while whipping her.
She added that Bishop has called his current followers from jail, asking them to contact the victim and get her to drop charges. Former member Erica Carroll prays she stands her ground.
Because he's very manipulative. I didn't want him to manipulate somebody or manipulate the judge to the point where they feel sorry for him.
The defense brought up Bishop's former employment as a barber and claimed he needs to be out of jail to seek medical care.
He has a tooth that is decayed down to the root that's causing him.
How it decayed, and he said he's a god. He have these people walking around calling him tree god, and he's a god, and he's in the bush, and he can heal herpes and AIDS and everything else. But here comes the defense saying that he needs to come out of jail for a tooth. Who is to blame? Is it society? Is it the male? Is it the female? Is it both? I mean, what? And this is not. This is just one case. There are multiple cases of the same thing when people give their power over to someone just because of their gender, right? In this case, just because you're a male and you say, hey, I'm spiritual and you should follow me, or I'm knowledgeable, or I'm a relationship guru, we don't know what angle the person is coming from. But when they're victims in when they're damaged, we say, oh man, who told them to listen to them? That's dumb. I mean, we got to make it make sense.
Him extreme pain.
They was bringing up points that really was irrelevant to me. Like, I mean, it was just very weak points.
Bishop faces several charges, including rape and false imprisonment. Paul Lucero, 11 Alive News.
Interesting stuff. Let's see here. Wait. So let me see. I put the link in the box if anybody would like to come through and say something. I'm not going to stay too long. I'm about to go. Oh, let me play a little commercial real quick. Hold on, peoples. Before we come to the discussionary portion of this conversation, let me not forget to do my job here. All right. We still got syrups on sale at the Yummy Cottage. But before we do, let me show you the new head wrap, shall we?
Jamaica woman, I'm a strong Jamaica woman.
So we have those reversible head wraps that is available on Etsy. I'm going to build it up on the site, but for right now, it's available on Etsy with free shipping. So if you are interested in said head wraps, let me play it again. The sound might have been too loud, but let me play it again. Let me turn it down a little bit.
Jamaica woman, I'm a strong Jamaica woman.
They're 100% cotton, reversible, or solid colors, so definitely hit me up. Let's go ahead and shout out Queen T. All right, that's the love of the people. And once again, as always, this broadcast is brought to you by the Yummy Cottage. All right. Welcome back. So we have some comments here. I'll read through some of these comments. Nasha is up. So Nasha, the mic is yours.
Greetings. Yes.
Greetings. What's going on?
Yes. This about Nature Boy was so painful.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. When this happened to a white woman, somehow we react differently. We then let's get them therapy, let's support them. But when it's a black woman, oh, how could she be so stupid? She is so dumb. She chose those men. And we talk about 20-year-olds. Even if a 30-year-old woman went to a cult and she was doomed, she still gets therapy or empathy, even 50-year-old white woman. But when it comes to our women, when they're black, the hate, I just, and the thing is, if we women are so vulnerable, even the children are so vulnerable. And I don't know, Mama Emuna, how we can raise the confidence in black women. We need to do that. When I saw this video, the way they were on the floor and said the black man is God, and they were on the floor and he had all these young women, I just asked and they were all living with him, making those funny symbols. I just thought of myself, where are the parents? Where is the community? And why is such a black man running around freely? And no one even stopped him.
For a long time. Again, but it leads back to the question, who's at fault, right? Because a lot of the conversation is coming up that the woman is oftentimes, especially the melanated woman. One of the first books I did was Angry Black Woman Syndrome, right? Revisited. So if the melanated woman is viewed, and this is just my thought based on some research, if she's viewed as if she's viewed as the strong woman, that's masculine terminology, right? If she's viewed as angry, oftentimes that's an emotion that's only okay for the masculine to have. So if she's viewed as being able to protect herself, therefore she's not feminine, and therefore she doesn't need protection, right? So when you see the European who contrastly, based on the last 100, 200, 300 years in history, she is viewed as by the overall society as delicate, in need of protection, right? So this is how we consciously oftentimes see that these are two different people. These are two different needs. So when European women get into a cult, somebody is manipulating them emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it's viewed differently than when this strong, independent woman who's modern, and how did she get fooled? You know what I'm saying? How did she get used when she can defend herself, when she can protect herself? I'm not saying it's right. There's a level of that's how she's viewed. So much so that there's a market for comparing her to everyone else. There's a market for making her feel less than in comparison to other nationalities. That's why we have this whole conversation that you're not Ming Ming, you're not Ling Ling, you're not Karen, you're not Marisol, you're not all of these women who are feminine. You do you understand what I'm saying? And so therefore, you must have did it because you wanted to do it, because don't nobody make so-called black women do anything. So I think it has gotten into the psychology of the whole conversation, why this something like this can happen, and people not bat an eye. You can see it unfolding right before you, and you look at it as entertainment. But that's my thoughts. Let me know yours. The link is in the box.
But what also question me is all those monosphere men who are saying, yeah, you can't get a woman at this age. You can get a black woman at this age. You can. Look at Neshapo, he did it. So where is
Oh
the
yeah,
problem?
he did it. He did it. That's
He
why
did it, so you can.
he got a lot of them. So
Yes.
and he still has them sitting there trained. Sorry, through abuse. I've seen one of the videos when, and it was recent, when they team up psychologically, emotionally on one person, and then they single that person out. And this girl, like, she screamed from the depths of her soul and ran down the block. And whatever place they were in Georgia that they were renting, the non-black neighbors came out. And they're like, what are you doing? What's going on here? Right? They was like, and he's begging them not to call the police because they were like, okay, something strange. How many people are living in this house? Something strange is happening. So all of this is happening in many places. I think they said they went to Hawaii, they were in Costa Rica, they went all these places. And each and every time when some fell off, he got more. So like you're saying, to say that they're not out there, what happens is somebody ruins these young women, somebody, so that when they become of age or when it's time to marry or whatever, they're not in the position or the headspace to even trust that they're going to be safe. We have to also consider some of these things. It's not really black or white. There's so many gray areas in this quote 80% of black women are unmarried conversation, that if we're going to be honest, some of the issues are coming from the damage that the masculine or men did early on in these women's lives. Somewhere along the line, either through their absence, their omission, their commission, whatever it is, they contributed. But oftentimes people want to just say it's the mother. She couldn't be there alone if he didn't leave her. He either left
And
her
then,
or she left.
and
So,
then they're saying Nature Boy's mother is to blame. She raised that man.
then
I'm
where was
telling
his,
you,
where was his father? If that, I think he was raised in a
the woman made him left. You know, black women, we make all the men left. So we are also to blame when the father left. You hear those men 2 days ago. If the man is not there, the woman did something again. So we are to blame for everything, even the bad weather. The black woman is to blame.
her face made it rain. and again, you don't really get anywhere if you look at places where the quote unquote black men had power. What were they doing with it? I think in that movie, if you watch the movie, oh man, what's the movie about the women who worked at NASA? Hidden Figures, right? even some elements
Ah,
in that movie when these women get this job in the 1960s. If you go back and look at their husbands and how some begin to feel indifferent as she's advancing, it's like there's a lot going on. The man wants to be in a position, but then again, not all men want to be in that position. Or some men want the authority without putting forth the effort that it takes. We have to be honest. Not all men want to be providers. They want to. Some just want to call the shots and not do the work. So in the same way, not all women necessarily want to be mothers or nurturers or whatever the what some would say the stereotypical women is. Not all men are gregarious. Not all men are givers. Some are selfish. You know what I mean?
oh,
For instance, I was gonna sorry. Go ahead, and I'll come back and say.
no, what I must say is here's the thing, but most black women that I know, this is my perspective, don't even want a man to fully provide. Most women really do have a job. They only want the basic things of, okay, when I go to work, you need to clean the home and do the dishes, you know, do something in the home and help me with the children. And sometimes men even can do that because the woman's job and housekeeping is a woman's job. So most women that I know don't even want a man to provide or for them. They want the basics of do the dishes. Like, you know, when I go to work and you stay home, do the dishes.
So
But
okay, so and that's also I've heard a lot of mothers, a lot of women or wives say that exactly what you're saying is she goes out. Somebody would say, well, why is she going out? Why isn't he going out? Right. But at the same time, he still has the understanding in his mind that that's women's work. So even though she's doing a portion of my job to provide, I'm still not going to pitch in and do her job. And people are not talking about a lot of wives who are still to a certain degree single mothers because the male may be in the home, but he's not helping. He's throwing his drawers on the floor. Not all. You have many complaints from all nationalities. He's throwing his drawers on the floor. He's leaving his socks. He's not picking up after himself. So in her mind, she has an additional child to look after, and she's not getting help. So you have a lot of married people, and somebody will say, well, why did you get divorced? Because they felt like they were doing it by themselves anyway. These are honest things. If we're going to be honest, maybe the statistics are not going to wholly bear out why these people are divorcing or why their relationships are breaking down. But as you're speaking to, it may be relationship roles and really looking into what people think they should put into a relationship for it to actually work. John gave a super shot here. So let's read John. I agree, Amuna, Pookie, and what? John agree? Wait, stop. Do I have a sound effect? What's going on here? Pookie and Ray Ray want the authority, don't want the responsibility of having a family. They're broke, yet women still have kids by them. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot of different variables. There's a lot of different variables that go. It's like employment. You can work at a array of different employers. Some are good, some are not so good. Some want you to do all the work and pay you minimally. Some will pay you but don't give you any guidance. Some will pay you on the table, but you don't have any what you call it. You don't have any insurance. Every job is not the same. So if oftentimes in the traditional way, if the man is the employer, what is he employing? Let's go on that premise. He's employer, and then you're not the man. For those who just joined us, I'm gonna play this guy again because I find it interesting, and then we'll go back to this conversation. So you might have missed this little play right here, so I'm gonna play it again.
Yo, y'all want to know why most men don't want to get married? Every man got that friend or friends that tied the knot and jumped the broom or whatever y'all want to call it. But they're always calling us to complain about y'all. It seems like you became a completely different person from who you was before you got married. They tell us you don't listen to them, you don't fuck them, you put them down, you tell them you better act right or I'm gonna leave you, I'm gonna take half your shit. It seems like when a man gives you the ring or his last name, you just become a straight bully. You just beat this man emotionally into submission. And I'm sure y'all gonna say this is not every married woman. I'm sure there's 1% of women that's probably sweet and nice as hell, just like the movies, right? But from what I'm seeing, it don't seem like that. And that's the reason why most men don't want to get married, because we just don't want to be treated like shit. So unless we could change this norm,
on my thoughts on that. But I just wanted to say that there are so many reasons that people are giving, and each one is blaming the other party. But if this is a contractual agreement, marriage is like going into a business agreement, what are the terms and conditions of this agreement? Sometimes the emotional aspect of it makes us blind to what are our expectations. Now, according to him, when the woman gets into the agreement, she becomes the she becomes, for lack of a better word, let's just do she becomes the person or the employer or employee who holds people captive, who doesn't do their job, who has an attitude, who and knows that the boss needs her, so she shows up late and leaves early, and takes long lunch breaks, and is taking advantage of the position. Some would say like a city worker, like you can't fire me, so I'm gonna just do what I want, right? This is what he's saying, but that's not the only reason that men are not getting married. Before this was the case, they used to call women the old ball and chain, right? When you refer to a wife as the old ball and chain, it's the man losing a level of his freedom. Let me know if I'm incorrect on that conversation. This is not something that is new. It's something that oftentimes some men know they need, but don't actually want, because it represents a loss of liberty and freedom. And now it's a trade-off, right? So he's blaming the woman, but it's also how the men thinks about the institution. And so therefore you have some people like going into open marriages, quote unquote, so that they can still get a taste of their own freedom, but actually have something secured on the other side. And we've beaten that dead horse 100 million times, so I'm not going down that road. But Nyasha, let me know if you have any thoughts here. Let me see if I missed anything.
Oh no, I was just, just think. I watched a documentary yesterday about child trafficking, and the number one missing humans are black girls. Black women were the number one missing. We are the number one women who are dying, in domestic violence. It is highest as black women, And before the age of 16, we're already been touched. So it's a lot what I think about. And when I watch Nature Boy, is that how cold as people we have become. Also about myself, just other people. How this system, this westernized culture have made people so cold and so indifferent. That is all what I was reflecting right now, that we see such thing happening to a 18-year-old, and we just blame her. We're just indifferent. And how could we miss that? That's all I was thinking, how come we don't care? Somehow we don't care. I don't know. How did we end up like this?
Point. Yeah, I mean, that's a question. Oftentimes the statistics that are brought up, and it's funny because when the statistics were brought up in the manosphere, the thought was that it's not happening. This is what I was talking about earlier about unjust weights and balances. When the statistics support your thought process, then they're 100% valid. When the statistics throws a monkey wrench in what you're trying to present, all of a sudden they're inaccurate. You cannot have a system that is that imbalanced. It's going to lead to what we're experiencing right now. You know what I'm saying? And what we're experiencing is a lack of trust of one another, because like you're saying, how did we get to this point? Hold on 1 second. I have to cough. I don't want to cough into the mic. 1 second. So because of, a blind eye is turned to the woman's experience, right? It makes it okay to do what one is doing because she wanted it. It's like what was I watching when the mother blamed the 13-year-old daughter for her husband molesting her. So even in some cases, not all, you will have the woman siding with the man to blame the child. So let's read a little bit about some statistics as we're asking whose fault it is, where is this coming from, and how do we fix it? It's not even just about the blame game. If we listening to somebody who is telling you to shut up and telling you that you should accept low-level threats of violence and you should have this is how you're going to respect the man, this is opening the door for abuse. And this is how, because I've studied a lot slavery, to me, this is how the slave master was able to, quote unquote, maintain power and control with not only just low level threats of violence, right? Emotional abuse and mental abuse and verbal abuse, calling you names. This is why so many of our people are triggered the moment you call them a name. You know, because that means that I'm going to lower you. Don't hold on, don't hit the car. I'm going to tear you down. I'm going to quote unquote put you in your place so that you can be malleable. You can be easily handled in my hands, right? That's the thought. We have to look at the psychologies of abusers and where so that on both sides, men and women, so that we can identify when it's happening. Let me just do real quick and then I'm gonna wind down, go cut some, just sew some scarves here. Violence against Black women that people are saying is not happening, many types, far reaching effects. So if this is happening for generations, the far reaching effect is where you're no longer able to wholly trust that you're going to be protected. Because the person who was supposed to protect you is actually the ones who are violating you. So when she doesn't trust financially, independent woman, emotionally, claim you don't need a man, mentally, tearing down the other, is because somewhere along the line there was a breakdown. But we don't want to hear that though. Violence against Black women, many types, far reaching effects. Black women disproportionately experience violence at home, at school, and on the job and in their neighborhoods. The status of Black women in the United States details these many types of violence. So when people say, I don't think the person was cruel, it's verbal abuse, bruh. This is part of the problem when we have been exposed to abuse so much that it has become normalized. This is not going to get us to where we want to be. Even a child, if you speak to them in a certain manner and you berate them over time, it affects their self-esteem. And for parents who want to kind of manipulate the child, they do that so that they can easily have the child to do what they want. It doesn't matter who it's coming from. It's abuse. So-called Black girls and women are also experiencing institutionalized racism. They're disproportionately punished in school, funneled into criminal justice system after surviving physical or sexual abuse, disproportionately subjected to racial profiling and police brutality, and incarcerated at rates far exceeding their share of the population. This is for the melanated man and the melanated woman. But there was something I wanted to talk about the other day. Goes to jail. This statistic wants to ride or die. She wants to be the mule. She listened to what he advised her to do and she became the fall guy. And nobody don't come check her. She's in there doing her time because she did the crime. Conversely, he's on the phone making collect calls. People need to rally for him, do all of these things because he's in jail and this is unjust. So when we look at even the value system, I said it before and I'll say it again, and some people were mad and unsubscribe and I love you anyway, but society, this is my experience with society. Society values males more than females.
It's a fact.
No, I just said this is a fact. And we see
Yes,
that expressed
it
through,
does.
we see it expressed through different ways. I'm telling you, I walk with 3 girls and 1 boy every day. Every day. I could go to the supermarket, I could go to the store, no matter where I go. They scan my daughter's faces and look around and says, oh, you don't have a son? Not, oh, wow, you have healthy children, right? A lot of them are like, oh, you got a son. Who? You made it. And I'm like, what? And this is for years. I'm not just talking about 1 or 2 years. This is over time. Random strangers, you look at how society values the male over the female. This is what also leads to these imbalances that we're experiencing. So a lot of the outcry is not that the woman was once abused. We could not hear you. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Can I be heard? Judah
yes,
says she
no.
can't hear me. I'm breaking up. I'm in the car. Y'all know I be in the car getting breeze. If I could be, but so that's my observation. Let me go to the comment section. And therefore, a lot of
Mine,
the issues
yes.
we're seeing is coming from that. But go ahead.
This is also my observation. Somehow, there was also a book from Dr. Joy DeGruy. She did some work about Black women. There is we are not seen. We do not exactly. When I go in a room, I was in an anti-racism room, and there was me. I was the only Black girl and one Black man, and bunch of those white women who want to fight racism. When I talk, sometimes Mama Imuna, when I speak, I feel like no one is hearing me. Like I am not in a room. I'm a ghost. But when he spoke, all the white women turned to him and listened. And when I speak, I was not existent. I was not there. And that's the way I've been feeling all my life.
Right. And
Like
there's a
I'm a
level,
ghost.
but there's
Exactly.
also a level to and I was going to read a little bit more where they're saying the Black woman, she's loud, and this is why she's not being heard, because she's loud and she's opinionated, and if she just shut up, how would you know what was wrong with her? If she's being abused, which she is, right, and she doesn't say anything and she internalizes it, then how is she being heard? If historically her needs are not being advocated for, if historically, even up until this day, when there are issues within even in a hospital setting, her pain is not acknowledged, then she has become her own advocate, because who is out here advocating for her? I'm not saying. So what's happening now is that men, I often in this space, what I see is that the melanated man is like, well, me too, who's advocating me? And the issue was, she used to advocate for you, but now when she realized, well, you ain't advocating for me, so I'm not advocating for you no more. That this is where I see in this Kevin Samuels conversation, they're like, what? She's not mourning? Why is she not mourning? I'm not saying those who are maybe laughing or carrying on, but there was like, why is she not mourning? She at least is supposed to show up and mourn. It's like, but you verbally abused her. You emotionally accost her. Why should she mourn? And then if you don't mourn, you're wicked, you're evil, you're the worst thing ever. But if this is the same person who gave you and heaped what they said was truth on your head for however many years, and now something has befallen you, the very thing that you wish for them, and now they're still supposed to be sorry. To me, there's a level of craziness in that. I don't know. There's a level of what? What are we talking about? Let me read this comment. It's the Ashanti says it's the fact that the second leading cause of death for Black women between the ages of 15 and 44 is intimate partner homicide. The majority of their partners are Black men. So we're seeing, what are we seeing? We're seeing violence turned inward, and the people that you're supposed to protect, and I showed the video the other day, that you're supposed to protect are actually being violated. You cannot then ask that person to trust you. Trust you to do what? Let's be honest. You cannot then shame them back into doing what you want them to do. Yeah, because your grandmother, it doesn't work. We have to look at why he may feel that he's unsupported, why he may be overburdened in society, why he has so much anger, and why he's putting all this anger and transferring it wholesale onto the female. What is going on? Let me just read some data. Y'all like data. The statistics says more than 4 in 10 Black women experience physical violence from an intimate partner during their lifetimes. That would be 40%, right? White women, Latinos, and Asian Islanders report lower rates. So 40%, okay, almost a third,
I
experience
think
violence.
it's more. I think it's more because women normally don't
They
report.
don't report.
such
They don't
incidents.
report,
Yes.
especially if they're there. They don't report. I agree.
Yes.
Black women also experience significantly higher rates of psychological abuse, including, Lamuna, what do you mean it was abuse? Humiliation, insults, name calling, coercive control. Then do women overall. We are seeing this real time, yet made to believe it's because I love you, bruh. This is abuse. This is for the Institute for Women's Policy Research. This is, we watch and witness straight up abuse and people play word games. No, it wasn't cruel. It was truth. Huh? Humiliation, insults, name calling, coercive control. That's what we were witnessing. This is what we continue to witness because I want you to do right. It doesn't work like that. Sexual violence affects Black women at high rates. More than 20% of Black women are raped during their lifetime. Who raped them? Who raped them? Who did it? Who's responsible? Who does she trust? Who does she believe? And then when she grows up and says, well, I cannot trust and believe, oh my goodness, why are you so difficult? Because you know what's funny? It's not funny. The other day I had a brunch, yeah? And I was like, yo, I need some flowers. So my mother has these flowers, a lot of them. So I was like, I'm gonna pick some of these flowers and put them in a vase, blah, blah, blah. So I go pick the flowers. I'm picking them and cutting it. And a long thorn stuck me in my finger. And I'm like, it's beautiful. The flower is delicate. Some people say female represents flowers and this and that. But nature has put a protective mechanism around this beautiful, delicate flower. That's how the creator designed it. Yes? So when this beautiful, delicate flower, this woman, right, who has been through so much, she then has to grow thornier so that she can protect and preserve herself. And then you're like, well, why is that the case? Maybe because she came through too much at your hands. But we say, no, blame her. Because if I take responsibility for it, it's going to be because the man is going to say it's employment, it's the so-called white man, it's because of everything except for himself, right? Black women face a particularly high risk of being killed at the hands of a man. A 2015 Violence Policy Center study finds that Black women were 2.5 times more likely to be murdered by men than their white counterparts. Again, this shows you that the value of life is lessened. And oftentimes, if somebody is going to kill somebody in that way, they feel some way that they have the right to do so. Somebody goes out and kills an animal, they feel they have the right to do so. Right or wrong? If someone goes out into the wilderness and they're like, I'm going to shoot me a deer, that deer was there minding its business. But somewhere in your mind, you felt you had the right to go shoot the deer. Therefore, the deer is dead. So what is going on in the mind of a man, many men, that makes them feel they have the right to take this woman's life? I was watching something the other day and the man strangled his wife. This was a European though. And he calls 911 crying. I was like, is he crying? And he first presented it as though her sweater choked her. And when they did more investigation, he choked her. There's a disconnect. There is definitely a disconnect. But I'm not going to keep going and going and going.
Yes.
My point being,
thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
so much for coming up.
Yes, absolutely. And the funny thing is, what most people don't realize is most of those Black women YouTubers like Cynthia G or Nyla, they went through rape. They stated on their panel themselves that those women themselves went through rape by a Black man. Cynthia G said it.
Wow, I didn't even hear
And
that part because they be on level 10 for me. So I haven't even heard
for
that
me
point.
too.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, come on. Like, again, the extremes. I don't deal in like too many extremes. You feel me? The extremes for me, it's too much. But I definitely could see where then that mentality would be formulated, right? I definitely could see as well on the other side. If the man has been hurt by or injured or manipulated or taken advantage of by the woman, I can see where if you don't process that pain, you're going to use it as reasons to attack the other party. But this is why I promote healing. So that when I come, I'm to the best of my ability, I'm not trying to win, get you to cut your tail off. Why the fox has no tail?
But I don't think that most men who end up beating their wife when they're abused by another woman, I think those are men on men really issues.
I mean,
institutional issues.
It depends. Some of the men could have witnessed abuse themselves as children. You understand? They could have seen, it could have been modeled for them in their household that this is how you deal with issues that you're experiencing. You exert your manhood and you try to put a woman in her place. So some of them could have been physically abused by women. Some of them could have witnessed a woman being abused and thereby identify with the abuser when it is their time. There are many, we cannot underestimate, because I just read emotional, mental, spiritual, or psychological abuse. A lot of men may have witnessed it. If you go and ask them, well, where did you get this idea from? Also, it may be from bad information. Maybe you didn't see it in the household, but as you're growing, your friends or whoever is telling you, know what you should do? You should slap her. We saw that illustrated in The Color Purple. So you may get bad information and then you try to employ that bad information. And if by chance it works, if you see, because for some people it's a power trip when they physically intimidate someone and they see that person cowering. It becomes a power trip. They feel empowered. It becomes like a drug, adrenaline, and they do it again and again. But if that woman fights back, you may have a whole different scenario, right? It could be the woman egging him on and he doesn't want to do it. We had LF on here the other day who talked about, being many women coming towards them in times past. You know what I mean? So there's a whole, it's not one way, I don't think, of how you get to physical abuse with a man and a woman. We see with I meant to bring it back, but I didn't. We see with Ike Turner. Maybe I'll come back and talk about that and we'll go through that. But let me see. I'm winding down here. 121. Sean says, that's why I love the interview you did with Dr. Rick Wallace about Grandma's Secrets. Yeah, I love that interview as well because it gives a perspective that oftentimes we don't want to take a look at. It's not that it wasn't happening, oftentimes we didn't see it. You're talking about two different people groups. One are the people who want to sleep around and have relationship benefits. Maybe I missed that one. On the other side, you have average black male who has no kids but are held accountable for what Pookie and Raby. I mean, we will have to talk about this. When you talk about, the average black man, what is that? And did this average black man, like I said, was he in relationships with women? Has he never been in relationships with women? Has he, because it's like to absorb the so-called average black man of his part that he played. I know a lot of what people are saying called average black man. He had his stories to tell as well. But we're trying to make it look like there's a squeaky clean segment of society. I'll come back and talk about Bilal, 90 Day Fiance, y'all, because I got some stuff to say. That's going to be a different video. Let me finish what I got to do today. And then probably I'll come back, if not later than tomorrow. Y'all know how I get down, to talk about this average black man, right?
And when are you going to talk about abortion? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. I'll talk about it again. I have a few videos on the channel. I actually interviewed Dr. Childress about it. Because he's at the forefront of Black abortion in America. He does a lot of advocating for it because I think abortion, especially in the melanated community, it is contributing to the problem that we're seeing. Because oftentimes, how do you get to an unwanted pregnancy? People are using sex out of context. That's my assertion, right? Sex out of context. So, you like the person, then you want to lay with the person. Oh, you got pregnant. Oh, plan B. Oh, abort the baby. I don't want that. So you're approaching people that you don't want to have relationships with, right? And you're being in the most intimate way that you can with them. And when the result of a child comes, you don't want it. Another part that we don't talk about abortion is in the context of marriage, where the woman may have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children and they can't, quote unquote, afford another one. And then abortion becomes an option. Sometimes people think it's only just one night stands. It could be in a whole relationship, in a marriage, where they're feeling like, I don't want to do this again. And they want to have the option of aborting the child. So I think that conversation, oftentimes abortion is put on the woman. I actually wrote in my book, I touched on that topic in, what's the name of the book? There's a fictional book I made to the follow-up of Island Girl. Island Twist, I think, is the name of the book. And in this book, I talk about there was an intercultural couple. They were young, and I talk about how sometimes that forced abortion that the girl gets is pressured by either her parents, his parents, or him. So in this book, I made the main character get impregnated because she trusted the guy, and then it was his parents that forced her to abort the child because they felt like she was going to blight his life. So I think I'm very passionate about having this type of discussion because sometimes, especially if it happens early in that girl's life, it changes her forever. People don't talk about the psychological effects of abortion. I've known people who have had abortions early on, and initially it was not their choice, right? They look
My
at
only
birthdays and
problem,
go ahead.
my only problem with Doctor was that he said on your platform, I go and talk to the woman, and I don't like men thinking like a go and boss around women. Why
Who's
doesn't
that?
it go and talk to the men?
Who's that? I'm sorry, I missed that one. Who said that?
The man who was on your show, because I did watch that show with you when you was talking about abortion. And my issue was, he did say on your platform, that's the way I understood it, or my perspective. He said he does go and talk to the women. Is he going to pay those women? Is he going to be the nanny of those children? Why is he not putting more energy in the men? Why are we always focusing on the woman, woman, woman? Why are those men, if you are a man and you are against abortion, why don't you deal with the man and leave the woman to the woman? That was my only issue on that conversation when I watched it.
Okay, that his perspective, and like you're saying, this is the question: the man's fault. Whose fault is it? Because as you're saying, some will say that if you get to the woman, it's her body, her right. It's really complicated. I think it's a hairy situation. It's two-sided. How the man looks at the consequence of his action, and the woman now being the one who holds the bag. Let's say, right? So she holds the bag. I've heard it being said on this thing that once she's impregnated, he has nothing to do with it. It's all her responsibility. I'm like, what? Huh? Right? So at that point, she determines if she wants to have the child. So he can plant the seed, but after that, if she wants to kill that child, then all of that is on her. I think that right there is another conversation. Definitely.
Yes,
John.
and that man, when he was on your platform, he did
Mhm.
say he goes and talk to the black woman, and this is where I was disturbed.
If you look it
I
up,
think
I think he talks to. I have to go back and look again because I know there's a website. They did documentaries. I know he has a lot of conversations. I think centered around just awareness of the issue. There's more to it. If we look up a little bit, I think the name of the website is. Let me go, just for the sake of conversation.
I'm going
The
to take a
website.
look at it before I make my bad comment
Right,
about
right,
him.
right.
But
I
you know,
wanted to give
yeah,
kind of give all of the information before we jump to judgment here, because that was a while ago. This is when I realized that okay, we don't want the real to real. They were like, Amuna, why are you talking about these topics? Because to me, these are the real topics, right? You can't promote just casual sex and all of these things and not look at. Oh, hold on. And not
because
look at.
if we are honest, men are more dangerous to create single mothers than women. Women can only birth one child in a year. Men can anytime. So we need to talk to the men. I don't understand it.
Well, that
I
goes
don't
back
get
to
it.
what, yeah, the men need to definitely be addressed because, like I said,
Absolutely.
there's a disconnect between action and outcome. The action is it's a man's inclination, it's his natural blah 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 to the blah blah blah, and it's disconnected from the outcome because the outcome is somebody else bears that outcome, right? Somebody else has to be responsible for that. It actually she multiplies that, right? She has to keep it, she has to go through gestation, she has to birth the child. So because all of that is done off site, let's just say, right? If we're talking about employment, all of that stuff is done off site. You're not really oftentimes connected to it because it's not physically happening. It's in the same way where a lot of the production, like say of clothes or food, because we no longer see or present to everything that is entailed, we take it lightly. So because he's not going through the motions, his body is not changing, all of these things are not happening to him, he's a bit disconnected. Not all, but many that we're seeing from the outcome. So basically, yeah, I did the act, but you deal with that. You get rid of it. You make it happen. And many men have said, if you're going to bear the child, you're on your own. Right? So yes, she picked this person, and sometimes you could pick the person and you had no idea the person would turn out to be who they are. Let me read some of these comments. Women who experience abuse, the result of the moms. Here we go. That's what I'm saying. Who's to blame? So we got another comment blaming the woman. Okay, thanks for that, John. And John, tell me if it's John or Joe, because LF told me LF told me I was calling you the wrong name. If so, my apologies. The majority of Black men do not have children. Did they impregnate anybody? Let's ask you, John. Did you impregnate anybody? Did the woman? If so, you know what I'm saying? Because some people could be like, a lot of women could say they don't have children. That doesn't mean they were never pregnant. There's a lot of women who were like 40, no babies, 30, no babies. That doesn't mean they weren't pregnant. If you also ask the question, how many abortions did you have? Not trying to be rude or disrespectful, you'll get to see that just because the child didn't come to fruition for male and female, that doesn't mean that the seed was implanted. The majority of men are not responsible for messing up. Yeah, absolutely they are. They are choosing to get pregnant by males. They are. If you're going to put the man in the position of leadership, then they have to take responsibility for the condition of the house. If a CEO is responsible for the company, then you have to take responsibility for the condition of the company. You cannot say that you're in a leader position and then want to absorb yourself of all the responsibility. It doesn't work like that. You got to choose. Why are you not asking why these old women are not telling the women 18 to 30 that loser men look like? Why are the older women leading? How can I say that across the board? Right? There's a lot of these, like I said, there's a lot of things that happened. Maybe we can get some of them up here who would like to speak for themselves, but there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of things in the changing of the guards. There's so many things that happened that the old ways was not wholly translated. As we said before, the grandmother who struggled through, when her daughter saw that, maybe she decided that's not going to be my fate. I'm going to go a different way so that I'm not dependent, so that I'm not vulnerable, so that these things don't happen to me. So I don't know wholly what the older women are telling them or not telling them, but somewhere along the line, I don't know if you guys watch track and field or ever you used to run track and field, someone dropped the baton. I don't know if you ever saw a race, especially that 4x1. Usually it happens in the 4x1 because the 4x4 you could go a little slower. But the 4x1 is such a close race, right? When you come up to, I don't know if anybody's ever run track, so I'm going to give you my track analogy because I used to run track. Before practice, before you go to the meet, you have to practice your steps, right? We're talking about John, so I'm getting there, John. You have to practice your steps. You have to count your steps. How many steps is going to take you to get to that person so that you don't slow up while that person is running? If by chance your steps are off, you have to signal to the person in front of you when to go and when to put their hand back. If you watch track and field closely, especially that 4x1, when they're running up on them, they say go. And when they're ready to pass the baton, they say stick. And if any point between go and stick, where your hand doesn't go where it's supposed to do, the person didn't send you to start running when they were supposed to, that baton is going to drop. So there's somewhere in between these two generations, the last 3 generations, I'll say, that the baton, the process between go and stick was not what it needed to be for a successful transition. Someone dropped the baton. Now we can blame the person who's passing the baton, which would be your mother generation, or you can blame the person who received the baton, which would be our generation. Either way, we can analyze this. Now, if you run track, I have a brother who ran on Olympic level. All he would do after running the race is analyze the race. I used to be like, what are you doing? Analyzing every single thing about the race. Your start. Did you put your head up too far? Did you come out your blocks too quick? Did you stumble? This is how you get better and improve. First, you have to know how the race is run, and then you can analyze where and whose fault it is, what happened, was there missteps, all of these other things, right? So to what John is saying, can we wholly blame the older women? Is it the younger women's fault? There's something for us to analyze. The name of the
this
thing is
thing of
the man's fault, John. I'm sorry, Nasha. You completely dishonest. Why are you blaming men? Because if the men, the question is the man's fault. If we're going on a premise, maybe you have another premise. So I'll ask you this. Are men supposed to lead? I'll ask you this, John. Are men supposed to lead? So, because if we establish a premise, then we can build from there. Once you answer that for me, then I'll answer your question. Go ahead, Nasha.
I think that we need to be careful because even me, I told you last time, the dealing with older women for me is not easy. There is absolutely a disconnect. And I remember even watching the show about Shahrazad Ali, and she's an elder. And I have a lot of those women in my family where they are blaming me of not being married, what I should be doing, but even they have been beaten up by their husband. So sometimes I think wisdom does not always come with eldership. And to think that I'm older, I'm automatically know better, I am not seeing it. There was even about this R. Kelly thing, and there was an older woman saying those girls were to blame to be raped by R. Kelly. I said, excuse me?
Okay,
Those
so
were elder women.
right. So what you're saying is the older women in my illustration who's supposed to tell you when to go, right? And then so that you can stick out your hand to receive, they miscommunicated, right? Because if they were taking abuse, if they were allowing certain things to happen, and they miscommunicate the same things, there's some people who pass these traditions on. Well, that's how it is, darling. Well, you can't expect better. Well, what do you think happened to me? And they train their daughters and their granddaughters to accept their lot in life. And what happens is some of the children, like you're saying, or the young adults are like, well, that's not what I want for myself. So maybe these older women did try to teach the girls ahead of them, but they decided that that's not the fate that they wanted. Like I said, there's so many different scenarios that can make this the case. And again, people learn by observation. If you see your parent, grandparent, uncles, aunts, and you see they're not happy and they were always arguing and the relationship was crazy and this one was always drinking and this one was a chain smoker, and you say to yourself, when I grow up, that's not going to be my case. They taught you more than through their words. They taught you through their actions that that's not the key to happiness. People are not dumb and blind. Children can see, they have eyes, right? So it's not only just about what they were telling them, it's about the ultimate choice that person ended up making. Oh, wow, we at 137. Anybody else have anything to say? Let me know your thoughts. The man's fault. Is the woman to blame? Is the woman to blame? Is her standards too high? Does she want too much? Yeah? Does she want too much? Is she asking for too much? Is she not satisfied? I'm going to come back and talk about the 90-day because Bilal in this story, this Muslim guy, he does something that I find interesting and something to be a whole conversation on to itself. Queen T. Wagwan. Because
Muna, may I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
John is saying some interesting comment. Because I'm not married, so maybe because I'm not married, no man is for me responsible. So I can be abused, raped, no care, because of course I'm not married. I don't know if this is really a community.
Again, it should be. Yeah, no, it's not.
No.
It's not.
No.
If you
can we not all be humans?
Right. That's why I'm saying there's a disconnect. There is definitely a disconnect from what we want for ourselves versus what we're willing to invest in the society as a whole. You understand what I'm saying? And because sometimes we're individualistic and selfish in our thought processes and our ideologies, we say, well, that has nothing to do with me. And the men who are supposed to speak up, I don't know if you guys saw this documentary coming out of Ethiopia, where this young girl, there was a tradition where the man doesn't ask for the girl. Him and his friends come and kidnap the young girl and take her to his place and force her to be his wife. And in this showing, I think they made it into a little movie. I have to go back and see it. in this showing, the girl she didn't want it clearly because they kidnapped her. So the man had a shotgun in his place, and he would lock her in there. He would lock her in there while he went off. But when he returned, she thought he was going to rape her, which clearly he was going to do, and so she shot him. Do you know the tribunal of all the men in the neighborhood who was justifying this bad behavior was really to throw the book at the girl? Not that he kidnapped this girl, not that he was about to rape this girl, not that he did all of these things. Their son is dead. How could this be?
Can you
This goes
believe it?
back.
I saw the
Yes,
movie.
you saw it, right? See, I'm not making it
And
up.
there
I'm
were
about to
those
go.
lawyers. And there were those
Lawyers,
women who were
yes.
lawyers. Exactly. I saw the movie.
I saw it. Right.
Ugh.
What's the name of that movie again? Hold on. What's the name of that movie? Hold on. I'm gonna tell you guys. Maybe I don't think we can watch it over here, but that's something for you to look into because what was the name of the movie? Help me, Nasha. What's the name of that movie? That was so interesting to watch. The men were around the tree, they were crying, oh, their son, oh, their son. Never mind, your son is a kidnapper and a rapist, right? But your son, how could you do this? And then the lawyers had to come in to her defense to try to argue that it was in self-defense that she did this. Yeah, it was based on a true story. It was definitely based on a true story because this was the practice of that tribe, kidnapping women and forcing them into subjection. So when people talk about the old ways and the old paths, tell us what you're talking about. Tell us what you're talking about, because I don't think that adopting all of the things that used to be is going to be healthy or beneficial. There was another young girl who was in Venezuela. I keep saying I'm gonna wrap up. I think she was in Venezuela and she wanted to go to school, but the family couldn't avoid it. And this older man came around to her parents like, oh, I want her. And this girl cried, she cried, because she knew that once she got trapped into this space, that was it for her. So it's not that a lot of these young girls around the world don't know that education is their way to make better choices. It's that social pressure and economic constraints is what pushes them into this marriage, so to say. It's like another Ethiopian man who had almost 90-something children, if I'm not mistaken, and he had to marry up all his girl daughters underage because he couldn't afford to feed them. So oftentimes women are looked at as a burden, but I find it interesting in the West, it's flipped. She's like, I don't want to be a burden. Let me go and sustain myself. And now she's looking at as being obstinate. I'm not saying that some are not, but I'm just saying. Well, let's get your closing thoughts. I'm going to try to look up that movie, Quincy, while Nasha is talking her closing thoughts. I can't remember the name of the movie. Go ahead, sis.
Yes. Thank you so much for your platform and to give me a voice. You should also check out this. There is a woman village in Kenya where women run away from their husband and they build the village for themselves. This village can only
I saw
be,
that.
yes,
I saw
even
that.
in Congo.
I
So
think I
Africa
found the
is not.
movie. Go ahead.
Oh, please. So Africa is not all tribe. I'm not want to paint broad, but it's not always the solution.
Yeah,
But thank you for.
there's many things to be learned. Okay, John is protesting that I read his comment above. So let's read the comment above. I will oblige, John. I will oblige. I'm gonna be nice today. If you, what is y'all know? You completely Okay, I read that already, John. If you don't marry the guy and have kids by him, you are not under his leadership, protection, unless you're being busted over the head, step in or call cops. You're not that man's responsibility. That's our next question. That's another comment. Wait, just one lot. We can't go no further. We're gonna have to come back on that one. John, save that comment there. I'm gonna have to come back and have that conversation right there because that lends to what we're experiencing. I'm gonna show this quick clip right here of I think the name of the movie is Different, spelled with only one F, DIFR. No, Different. So hold on one second, and then I'm gonna have to wind down, y'all, because the young ones, they have played. I have them sitting here in the car watching them play, and then I'm about to go do what I gotta do. So let me bring it up on the screen so y'all see a little bit about it. Come on now. All right. We found it. We found it. We found it. So for me, watching a lot of these documentaries, a lot of these foreign films, it helps. I've always like watching foreign films, from karate movies and all that. It helps expand the mind. So when you're having these conversations, you're not misled to think that, oh, this is just happening in America. Nah, it's human nature. Here it is. This name is Defred, official U.S. trailer, Ethiopian Brides.
እዛ ገጠር ፖሊስ ጣቢያ አንዲት ህፃን ይዘዋል። ኃላፊዋን ገላለች ነው የሚሉት።
አታስቢ፣ በቅርቡ ሚስቴ ትሆኛለች።
እንዳጠጋኝ ጠበቆች ነን። እሺ፣ እኛ ፖሊሶች አይደለም።
ሰው ገላለች፣ ለሱም በህይወቷ ትከፍላለች።
እሱን የምትወስነው አንተ አይደለህ። የህግ እርዳታ ለሚያስፈልጋቸው ምንም ብር አያስፈልግም። የነፃ አገልግሎት ነው የምንሰጠው።
ጠልፎ ማግባት እኮ ባህላችን ነው። ባህላችንን ከከተማ የሚመጡ ናቸው።
ህጉ ግን በስራ ላይ መዋል አለበት። እቺ ልጅ ሰውየውን የገደለችው ራሷን ለመከላከል ስትል ነው።
ያንን ግን ፍርድ ቤቷ ነው። እስካሁን ራሴን ለመከላከል ነው ተብሎ ለሴት ልጅ የተፈረደ ፍርድ አላየሁም።
እኔም አውቀው ተኩሳ ሰው ነው የገደለችው።
ሂሩት ነፍሰ ገዳይ አይደለች። እንደውም በጣም ጎበዝ ልጅ ናት። ምንድን ነው ወሬ የሌለሽ? ቤት ስለማሉ ወንዶች እኔን ለማግባት የሚፈሩ ይመስለኛል። አትከለላ ይህንን ክስ ማሸነፍ አለብን። የሂሩት ክስ አንድ ነገር ሊያስመስል ይችላል። እናም ፍርድ ቤቱን የምጠይቀው ትክክለኛ እርምጃ እንዲወስድ ነው። ነፃነት ለሁሉም ዜጋ የተሰጠን መብት ነው። ሴቶችንም ጨምሮ።
Yo, that's crazy. That's crazy. If you read the subtitles on there and see what they were saying, she said, why don't you have a husband? She said, men are afraid to marry me because I don't stay at home. But if you're looking at this, her self-defense didn't matter. Her protection against her abuser didn't matter. The fact that she was abducted and about to be raped didn't matter. The only thing that mattered to them in their traditions was the fact that she killed a man who has way more value than she does. But even if you look at the Bible and the Torah, it says if you rape, it's like taking a woman's life, raping her, right? Doing that type of violation to somebody. But again, it only matters when it's done to, I spoke about this from the beginning. It only matters in many societies when it's done to one and not the other. And when the other just has a little bit of what it feels like, now all of the injustice, ring the bell, something is wrong. And what's wrong is that humanity has lost their way. So if that will come back, if you want to know the movie, I'll drop the link in the box. Go ahead and check it out. It's crazy. But it lends to a lot of what we're talking about here. So again, thank everybody for tuning in. I'm going to have to boogie on out right now, but we'll be back at another time. Everybody have a blessed day. Oh yeah, I forget. Like, subscribe, share. So, you know, I can make more time to come through. Let me just show you one more time the new easy reps we have. The link will be in the box below. 100% cotton head wrap.
Jamaica woman, I'm a strong Jamaica woman.
So those custom wraps come in different colors. You just let me know what colors you would like, and I custom make them. Go through Etsy and we'll send them out. And once again, the Yummy Cottage. And we'll talk again. 1.